Hey guys, what's up? It is Ripe again, back with more malicious compliance / revenge stories. In today's crazy story, OP's wife gets his sister-in-law deported just out of jealousy. Without wasting any more time, let's dive right into the stories. And the first one is titled, Jealous Wife Gets Husband's Sister-in-Law Deported. I had to come on here and get some kind of sideline perspective because currently no one else in the family knows that the reason sister-in-law is deported is because of my wife. Not sure if I should out her either in my current state of mind. Sorry if this is long and disorganized, my mind is currently in chaos. Background, we have been together for 8 years and no kids. Basically, all of this began when my brother and sister-in-law moved back to our home country after he had been living in sister-in-law's country. Prior to that, my wife Emma did not have an issue with SIL. My wife and sister-in-law are both from the States, but my wife has been living with me in my home country since we got married. And by the way guys, SIL means sister-in-law. My brother and sister-in-law are what some people might call free-spirited. Sister-in-law is from Portland, something wife rolls her eyes at, and is very hipster. They both smoke regularly, something I don't have an issue with but don't feel like getting involved with either. My wife has no issues with drugs and drug use, but she cannot stand how much my brother and sister-in-law talk about pot whenever we see them. 6 months ago, my wife decided to finish her master's degree and was offered an opportunity to do a semester abroad. Coinciding with that time, my brother and sister-in-law moved back here permanently. However, from what I understand, sister-in-law is technically still on a tourist visa, which has expired by now since they came in February, and I'm not really sure what was going on with the whole paperwork process. They seem to be bad at planning. Sister-in-law has mentioned before that she wants to have a kid with my brother because she would not only get paid maternity leave here, but it would cement her staying. She told my wife this over Facebook messages as well. When my wife left to do her semester abroad and brother and sister-in-law moved in, we hung out a lot more. At first my wife was cool with it and would say hi etc, but things changed when brother and sister-in-law invited me on a road trip to Sweden, something that my wife has always wanted to do with me, but we never got around to it. After that, she would become short in her answers whenever I said I was hanging out with them. She began to make subtle comments about sister-in-law, and the more I saw them, the more vicious the comments got. As a result, I didn't go out with my brother so much when I knew sister-in-law would be there. I love my brother, but honestly, he takes a lot of energy to be around, so it's not something I really minded too much. However, things came to a head when both sister-in-law and my wife entered the same photo competition. My wife entered first and then sister-in-law saw her post and entered 2 days after. Then she and sister-in-law engaged in pretty childish, subtle Facebook statuses about each other, always masked as someone or this person. My wife was pissed and I took the opportunity to ask her what was going on between her and sister-in-law. She basically told me that she resented how sister-in-law got to see me all the time now and how she feels inadequate compared to her because sister-in-law does all the cooking. Although it is mostly those minimalist dishes people make for Instagram and not very appetizing for me. And I'm the one who cooks in our marriage. Sister-in-law is also Asian and I made the mistake of telling my wife that I had a thing for Asian girls back when I was 20 and everything Japanese was all trendy. She was also upset that I had gone to bro and sister-in-law's wedding without her while she had been abroad during her bachelor's degree. And by the way guys, this part I don't really get. Why the hell would she be angry at him when she is abroad anywhere? There was no chance they could go to the wedding together. Anyway, she is also afraid that I'm going to start smoking again because of them. I told her it was not something I was interested in because pot mostly makes me paranoid and depressed. She also brought up that she hates how I will talk crap about my brother and sister-in-law, mostly about their need to constantly talk about smoking and some of their very out there ideas about things, but act perfectly fine to their faces. She said she feels like I am placating her by saying sister-in-law is annoying, but I still go see her. She said it makes her feel like I will lie to fit the situation and that bothers her. And Ripe stars, as you can see, already a lot of red flags popping up. Anyway, well, I had not seen brother or sister-in-law for a few weeks now, and my wife and I were back to normal. She came home and we were having a good time seeing all of our other friends. She did not even bat an eyelash when I said some of the guys had invited me out for a guys' night. All was good. Then last week my brother called and asked me if I wanted to hang out. He sounded pretty high and I told him no. Emma casually asked what was up and I told her. She got a bit quiet and then shrugged and went back to doing whatever. About 10 minutes afterwards she said she was going to take the dog for a walk and run to the shop to get some vegetables for dinner. This is basically what went down. She went outside, called the police anonymously and said that she was a concerned neighbor and could smell MJ coming from my brother's flat. The police came. My brother and sister-in-law were arrested and fined. However, when they went to pull up sister-in-law's profile to record the incident, they discovered her expired tourist visa. She had to be transferred to a sort of holding facility for people who are in queue for being deported. Now there is a whole crap storm happening. My brother is beyond upset and the family is shocked. This is not really something that can be worked around, as first, MJ is illegal in this country, and number 2, she was on an expired visa and they didn't file the correct paperwork for her to live here legally. So if she is deported, she may face a 5 to 10 year ban. This means either the end of their marriage or my brother will need to figure out how to move to the US with her. The thing is, no one knows it was my wife except me. And she does not even sound the least bit remorseful. We had a huge row about it and she stood by her decision, saying that if sister-in-law was that stupid to do illegal drugs, as well as not to have her papers in order, then it was on her. If I'm being honest, I don't care so much about sister-in-law being deported, but I care that my wife felt so threatened by her that she went to this length. She is the type to make subtle remarks and be frosty, but she has never done anything close to this before. So now I am in a real bind. I really don't know what to do. I definitely cannot tell the family and I don't really feel the obligation to anyway, since I'm not close with my mom because she left me as a kid and I don't talk to any of my relatives really except my dad and brother. But I cannot just let this slide. I need to impress upon her that she has potentially ruined a marriage all in effort to remove someone she finds annoying from our lives. Someone we don't even have to see every day. What advice can you guys give me? There's no one else I can even talk to about this. Update: as of this moment, sister-in-law is definitely being deported. Final update, so there's a lot to catch up on here. First, sister-in-law is on a flight out tomorrow. There is nothing that can be done at the moment to keep her here. She now has a stamp on her passport that says expelled and a 10-year ban from the entire Schengen area. The immigration officer my brother spoke to said that it is possible for the ban to be reduced, but that is the current official time given. The American embassy was also notified about this. My brother is a wreck. He was able to briefly visit sister-in-law in the holding facility and she gets to call him twice a day, but that's it. They don't know when it will be possible to see each other again or where. If he is unable to go to the US because of his arrest, they may agree to meet in a mutual country. Sister-in-law has family in the Philippines, so that may be an option for them. Many of you told me to tell him what my wife had done, but honestly, in his current state of mind, I just cannot do it. It would be the actual tipping point for him. I know that this probably means I will have to either never tell him or accept that when I do, it will completely destroy our relationship. Secondly, I did tell one family member. My mother came to visit to discuss sister-in-law's deportation and I ended up telling her what Emma did. She was furious and she insisted that the both of us talk to my wife. Well, wife and I had already agreed to have a long talk today about the matter and what this meant for us. I felt a little more grounded having my mother there, and then things just took a freak turn. My wife sat down, seemed really calm. She let my mom say what she wanted and just sort of sat there nodding and had her hands folded. When my mom was done talking, my wife pulled out her phone and handed it to my mom. She showed her messages from sister-in-law on Facebook telling my wife how she planned to have a baby in order to stay and get paid maternity leave. My mother is extremely sensitive to this sort of thing because her own mother used her as a pawn, so to speak, many times when she was a child. mostly to get money from the state. So my mother went from being extremely angry at my wife to actually siding with her. She said it was better this way because sister-in-law's motives for having a baby were misguided and that she couldn't believe my brother was going to go along with it. So, with my mom on her side, my wife began to lay out sister-in-law's shortcomings and how she was creating a toxic environment that would drag us down and any potential child they would have had. She also said that it was unfair how she had to go through the process of paperwork before coming here and sister-in-law was resting on her laurels and scheming to cheat the system, something that really pissed my mom off towards sister-in-law. Valid points, all of them, to be fair. However, I was not going to let it slide that she had obviously had ulterior motives such as being jealous of sister-in-law. I asked her if she would have done any of this if sister-in-law and my brother were not spending so much time with me, if sister-in-law was not cooking dinners for me, taking photos or entering the same competition as her. She admitted that all these things definitely contributed but only served to underline the disdain she already had. I told her that no matter how you cut it, she had effectively ended their marriage. My mom decided to jump in and say that sister-in-law and brother were at fault because they didn't get their situation in order. My wife seconded that and said if sister-in-law had taken the time to file papers instead of planning trips with me or being busy playing housewife to someone else's husband, she wouldn't be in that situation. To quote,
"Maybe she should have been taking care of herself and her own instead of trying to play a housewife to someone else's husband. Well, I can take care of my family just fine, and if she had any doubts about that, now she's in the clear."
I will admit the points about her being afraid that I was going to be implicated along with sister-in-law and brother when it comes to pot, I understand. That's a valid fear to have. They smoke almost every day, brother almost always has something on him. Sister-in-law should have done her paperwork, she should have made sure her visa did not expire, I will not argue that. She probably shouldn't have said she was going to have a baby specifically to stay here. However, I know that these are solid excuses that are being used in conjunction to something else. I know that if sister-in-law was some fat ugly slob, wife would roll her eyes and let them be. If sister-in-law was not Asian, if she couldn't cook, if she didn't take pictures of us together for her Instagram, then my wife would just chalk her up as another annoying person who smokes too much for her taste but was ultimately harmless. And if I know if I had just gone to Sweden with my brother that my wife wouldn't care. However, because I went with the woman who was playing housewife to me, it was a serious offense in her head. I waited until mom left to tell her all of this. She didn't deny it. I also told her that this whole situation had let me see a side of her that honestly scared me. I told her I wanted to begin couples therapy together or there was no hope of this continuing. She agreed and we both began to research therapists in our area. She apologized for not talking to me about calling before doing so, but she hasn't apologized about sister-in-law being deported. She also said if I wanted to tell my brother and sister-in-law that it was her, I could go ahead and do that, but I'm not going to. 1. They are distraught enough, and 2. It seems like her coming to claim victory one last time over sister-in-law to her face. So that's what's going on. I am hoping to post an update on our progress when we begin couples therapy. The issue for me right now is rebuilding the broken trust. Also, as far as things with the family go, well, my mom is on her side and should my mom decide to tell other people in the family, she will definitely make sister-in-law the bad guy in the story. Aside from my brother, I think most of the family would be on Emma's side. Last update, wife and I went through therapy for almost an entire year and at this point I have forgiven her for what she has done. Nonetheless, we both acknowledge at this point that she has destroyed a marriage and my brother wants nothing to do with us anymore. I'm not sure how, but he found out about the reason why the police basically knocked on their door, which led to them ultimately getting deported. And I think by this guy's OP means that his wife got deported because obviously the brother was not getting deported himself. Either way guys, this is the end of the story and I would love to hear what you think about this story. Quite frankly guys, I would be sort of afraid to be together with a wife like that. She seems to really go above and beyond when she gets jealous, and I think that's definitely not a good characteristic. Either way, if you enjoy these crazy relationship stories, please don't forget to like the video and post some star emojis in the comments if you want to support the channel. Thank you so much in advance. The next one is titled, Half-brothers threaten to sue me over 16k, it costs them 158k and possibly their parents' marriage. When I, 25 female, was 3, my grandparents passed away. They set up a savings account in my name. The account was meant to be accessed by me when I was 21. At that point it contained just over 300k. My grandparents left me a letter saying they would like me to share the money fairly with any other Smith-Jones children, meaning my full siblings. Dad is a Smith, mom is a Jones. By fairly they meant that they wanted me to assess the situation and judge for myself what was fair. I never had full siblings, but I have 2 half-brothers, Mac and Joe Smith, who are dad and stepmom's kids. Due to the specific wording my grandparents used, I legally never had to give Mac or Joe any money. However, I see Mac and Joe as my brothers, and as the money came from our grandparents, I felt that the fairest thing would be to assign each of us 100k, so we all got an equal-sized lump sum, and I figured that when Mac, the youngest, turned 21 and took his 100k, we could split any remaining money. When I turned 21, Dad suggested I buy a house with my 100k. I found a place I loved, but it was 130k and I couldn't get a mortgage, so Dad said I should borrow 30k from the account. I did, figuring I could pay it back before my brothers turned 21, and I have been repaying it. The account should be at 208k right now, but due to me withdrawing and then repaying that money, it is at 195k, so I still owe 13k. Joe turned 21 recently, and as I was giving him his 100k, Joe noticed that there was less in the account than there should be. I explained and said that I was going to put it all back before Mac, now 19, turns 21. Joe told Mac and both boys said I stole from them and owed them the full 13k back plus 3 grand of interest that they felt they would have gotten, and they wanted it all paid by this summer, which gave me less than 6 months to bring the account up to 211k. I said I would do it, but over 2 years as planned. The boys then wrote up a contract to that effect. I went to sign it until I saw that it said 6 months to pay it all back. I wouldn't sign as we agreed on 2 years. They said I should figure it out as they were entitled to that money and would be seeking legal advice. Later that day I got an email clearly written by them saying that they intend to sue me for the 16k plus whatever is currently in the account and additional damages and emotional distress on top of that. At this point in time, I had given Joe about 50k of his 100k because he wanted it in installments. I responded that legally they were never entitled to any of it, and given their attitudes, I'd say they've already received an amount I deem fair. So that 50k was all they were getting. I then got a barrage of texts, calls and emails yelling at me for going back on our deal. I blocked them. They then took to social media saying that I was trying to screw them out of their inheritance and rallying our extended family into harassing me over this, and it mostly worked as a lot of people messaged me. However, I got a message from this guy called Chris Smith. Chris said he was 27 and claimed to be my half-brother. I had never met him before, but he sent me photos of him as a kid with our dad, grandparents and me. He showed me that he also had an account with 150k in it and a scan of a letter from our grandparents saying this money was meant to be shared fairly among Dad's illegitimate children. Chris also told me we have another half-sibling who is 18. He had been looking for me for a while but only found me when Dad shared Joe's post which had me tagged. We checked with the solicitor to make sure, and as the boys are legitimate, they are not entitled to anything in Chris's illegitimate kid fund, and as they are my half-siblings, they are not entitled to anything in my Smith-Jones kids fund either. I sent the boys a letter formally telling them to back off, stop posting about me online, and enjoy the 50k because it is all they are getting. The day they received the letter, Chris got a PM from Dad asking if the boys can have some of Chris's fund. Chris also said no and told Dad we had met. I told Mac and Joe about Chris and our other half-sibling with Chris's permission. So it looks like my grandparents, knowing about Chris before they passed, set up 2 funds. One for the kid's dad had with my mother and who was still his wife when they passed, and one for children born out of dad's affairs, presumably to make sure no one tried to screw anyone else over out of hurt feelings. I am getting a lot of crap, but holding firm on my decision. The boys have realized that I won't back down on this, and it sounds like I have caused a schism at their house, as Joe has all the money and no intention of sharing, so Mac is now feeling twice as screwed. Plus, stepmom apparently didn't know about the other half-siblings or that my half-sister was born after she and dad got married, and she has made my dad move into a hotel. It sounds like dad is looking for a long-term living arrangement outside of the family home because it looks like she is not letting him move back in. Dad is begging me to reconsider, but honestly, I am done with all of them except Chris and my sister. And Ripe stars, with this we have unfortunately reached the end of today's video. However, if you cannot get enough of my stories, then I would highly suggest you to check out my endless binge watch playlist, which will show up at any moment in the left corner of the screen, which includes over 1000 Ripe stories. In addition, if you would like to share one of your own stories, then please head on over to r/Ripe Stories on Reddit, where you can post your own story and there is a good chance that I might read it in a video. In addition, please also check out my Patreon at patreon.com/ripeyoutube for more than 50 exclusive Reddit videos that you won't find on YouTube. Thank you so much for watching, your daily support is very much appreciated, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.